Hi everyone, welcome back to my series on Steven Soderbergh. Soderbergh is a director who's made a lot of different kinds of movies. He's done major studio blockbusters like Ocean's 11 and Contagion. He's done Academy Award-winning films like Traffic and Aaron Brockovich. I'm going to be talking about a couple of movies that you may not have ever heard of. They're so low profile. Full Frontal, which was released in 2002, and Bubble, which was released in 2005. And both of these movies were actually screenwritten by the same person. Her name is Coleman Hough. She lives in Ohio. She's lived in Ohio. I guess Soderbergh was very interested in the place where she comes from, the area that she lives in. So he decided to make Bubble as sort of a look into that sort of area of the country. It takes place in and around a couple of towns that are in sort of an isolated area, not really near any major city. They've got a downtown area that has some restaurants and bars and shops and what have you, but for the most part people are spread out all over a wide area. Houses are kind of small, and a lot of people live in trailers, and a lot of people tend to work in industrial areas like factories. It seems like kind of a grim area to live in, not poverty-stricken or anything like that, but not very well off, and kind of depressing actually. So that film is Bubble. Bubble is a movie which takes place in this area of the country, and the main characters are played by non-professional actors, people who just live and worked in that area, and they answered a call for auditions and were interviewed and were picked basically by the strength of their personality and what kind of character they could play versus any actual acting ability. The main characters are Martha, Kyle, and Rose. Martha and Kyle work together in a factory that makes dolls, baby dolls. And Martha's a middle-aged woman. She's in her 40s. She takes care of her father at her house. Kyle is a younger guy in his early 20s. He lives in a trailer with his mom. And she basically drives the both of them to work and home every day. And they have lunch together. And they're pretty much each other's only friend. Martha doesn't have a very large social circle, and Kyle's is even smaller. So they just sort of basically hang out together, you know, as just a matter of a lack of other options. But then Rose is hired by the same factory. Rose is a woman in, I guess, her mid to late 20s who has a young daughter. And Martha immediately becomes worried because she feels that this young woman will take Kyle's attention away from her. She's going to lose her friend. So she doesn't like Rose to start with. And things get dicier when they end up spending more time together at lunch. Then actually, on one occasion, Rose gets Kyle, I guess, to take her out. He's kind of a shy guy. He's not real gregarious. When she asks Martha to babysit for her, Martha doesn't realize that Kyle is the one that she's going out with. So that creates sort of an awkward situation. And then there's a murder. And a cop comes in and is talking with each of these characters, investigating what happened and trying to find out what was going on. So like I said, none of the people in this movie are professional actors. The only one who doesn't do a really great job as far as acting goes is the one who plays Martha. But I'm not going to diss or anything like that. I mean, they're not professional actors. They haven't any practice, and they're just delighted to be in this movie. The DVD has some features on them and just what their lives are like and the opportunity to be in a film like this. I'm not even sure the circumstances were involving them knowing exactly who it was they were working with. You know, how familiar they were with Steven Soderbergh and the films that he's done. Because at this point, he'd made a bunch of really big movies, and then here he is in this tiny little town in Ohio making a movie with these guys on a shoestring budget. It's really very interesting. The woman who plays Rose is a hairdresser. The woman who plays Martha, she worked at KFC for over 20 years, you know, and not in the corporate offices either. She worked at a KFC restaurant, basically, serving food to customers for a long time. Kyle, he's a high school dropout. I guess he works or maybe goes to school, something like that. Obviously, some time has passed since the movie came out, so things might be a lot different now. But it's an interesting movie. It's really good, actually. It's one that I didn't see. One that I saw only one time. And the funny thing is, this movie was the first one presumably, that I'd heard of that tried a multi-platform release. In that they were going to release it in the theaters on a Friday, and the following week, on Tuesday, release it on DVD and have it available on demand. And I guess they wanted to do this so that it would be available to people when the initial reviews came out, because the film would be playing in so few theaters, maybe one theater per city at the most. And that's how it was here in Chicago. So yeah, this is something that's been picked up. Melancholia recently made itself available on demand a couple of weeks, 2 or 3 weeks before it came to Chicago in the theater. So this is something that's continued on. But recently there were a bunch of theater owners that were objecting to Tower Heist being available on demand just a few weeks after it came out in the theater, because they felt that people, it was a wide release movie and that people should go and see it in the theater and spend their money in the theater rather than, going, oh, it's going to be, on demand or on DVD, or it's, in just a few weeks, so let's just wait for it. They would lose money that way. But there are a lot of small budget indie movies that have done this same multi-platform release since then. Now, a few years earlier, of course, Full Frontal came out, and that's a movie involving, recognizable actors like Julia Roberts and Catherine Keener and David Duchovny. It's set in California, in Los Angeles. It involves a production of a film that stars Blair Underwood and Julia Roberts, or at least characters played by them. Okay, here's the thing. Julia Roberts is playing an actress who's playing a reporter in a film interviewing an actor who's starring in a movie with Brad Pitt. There's multiple levels of reality here. It's just really kind of, it's not really hard to keep track of, but it's a pretty simple story. It's a comedy. The main characters, Catherine Keener and Mary McCormack, are sisters. They talk on the phone regularly and they get together. It's Catherine Keener's birthday like the following day, but it's the birthday of the David Duchovny character today, I think. He's a producer, and there's going to be a party for him that night where, some well-known people are going to be there. Catherine Keener wants to set up her sister with David Duchovny, but what she doesn't realize is that Mary McCormack, as a massage therapist, is actually going to be calling on David Duchovny as a client earlier in the day. So there's some weird stuff happening there. It's not a terribly good movie. The acting's really good, and it's one of the more fun movies that Soderbergh's done. It's very similar, I think, in tone to Schizopolis. Another thing that's notable about it is the fact that Soderbergh did a lot of on-camera, in-character interviews. This is something that he did in Schizopolis. He had the actors basically play the characters, but be interviewed as the characters. And in this film, he did it as well. He did it with all the major actors, and basically used the audio track from their interviews as narration. So they would talk about their characters, and they would talk about the other characters, and then he would make that the narration for the film. He shot a lot of it with a digital camera that was not very good quality. If you watch it on a large flat screen TV, it's pretty crappy looking for the most part. Not a movie that I would say don't see ever. It has its moments, but yeah, it's not one of the more notable films in his catalog. I would recommend Bubble before I'd recommend Full Frontal, but neither of them I would say stay away from. Yeah, Soderbergh is a guy who really likes to experiment a lot, and he likes to try a lot of different things. And again, with Full Frontal, is just trying something new. He actually, it was publicized when the film was being made that he wanted the actors not to be coddled and catered to like they normally are. Even major movie stars like Julia Roberts, they have big trailers and, they have assistants helping them out. He said, okay, in this movie, you're going to drive yourself to the set and you're going to drive yourself home, and you're responsible for your own hair and your own makeup and your own wardrobe, okay? Nobody's going to do this stuff for you. You show up ready to go and we shoot quickly, and then we're done. So yeah, that was another little experiment of his. And I happened to pick up about a month ago this issue of Philip Comment, in which there's an interview in which he talks about some of the more experimental stuff he's over the years. In fact, one thing that he was planning on doing was being a part of a group called F64. He and 4 other directors, David Fincher, Spike Jonze, Sam Mendes, and Alexander Payne, they were going to work on this project whereby each of them would direct a movie that the other 4 guys would prepare for them. So if it was Soderbergh's turn, he would basically be handed the script that was already written, and he'd be told, okay, here's where the first location of the day is, and you go there and you shoot with the actors that are there with the script that you have, and you just basically shoot. You know, it's all prepared for him. The other 4 guys, they would scout the locations, they would cast, they would develop the script, and then they would plot out the shooting schedule, and they would just hand everything to him and say, okay, direct the movie, and then edit it once it's done, but you don't get any preparation. So each of them would do that in turn. And Soderbergh would then participate in the preparation of the films that Payne and Fincher would do, and the other guys. But that project didn't work out because they wanted to be completely independent of a major studio. And what happened was USA Films that distributed The Limey, they ended up getting bought by a major studio, so they didn't want to do it anymore. Hopefully they will do it sometime in the future. But from what I understand, Soderbergh actually took some of those same ideas and brought them to other films that he did. I guess Bubble was one of those. Well, no, I'm sure he prepared that movie, but I just thought it was interesting that they have a situation where each one of those guys was going to make a film that they didn't know anything about until like the first day of shooting, which is kind of odd. They wouldn't even have a say in casting. Okay, here are the actors. You know, they're playing these parts. Go start shooting. You know, that was kind of the whole idea behind it, which is kind of exciting. Yeah, that's Bubble and Full Frontal, and there's going to be a couple more videos that I'm going to be doing in this series. Next week I'm going to be talking about more Matt Damon movies, Contagion. I'm going to talk a little bit about Contagion and also The Informant, which came out in 2009, and I hope you'll tune in for them. If you've seen either of those movies, and I know many of you have, feel free to make video responses in advance and attach them to my video. I'm making a whole playlist of Soderbergh videos that you can be a part of. So, thanks very much for watching, guys. Take it easy.